Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over the unique item known as the Bing Z Swang, which actually translates to King of Cold in Chinese. So the King of Cold, Dacian Falx, is an interesting item which is obviously revolving around cold damage. Right off the bat, you notice it has 33 to 78 physical damage. It has 67 to 158 two-handed damage. 14 dexterity, 64 strength requirement, level 43. So it's a relatively low-level item. It's normal attack speed on this particular character. Some characters do get a bonus to the attack speed. It kind of reminds me of the Claymore from, I swear, the Claymore from Braveheart. It does have 5% chance to cast level 3 Frozen Orb on striking, which is relatively low percent chance. But because of the way that Frozen Orb works, how it puts out 46 bolts, and each bolt can actually do a pretty significant amount of damage, you're talking about an average of about 62 damage per bolt. And then you're also talking about 46 bolts, so anywhere around like 2,400 damage per Frozen Orb. Of course, not all 46 bolts can hit one particular target, so do keep that in mind. But, you know, it does do a pretty significant amount of damage. It's just a relatively low proc chance. So if you were going to rely on that proc chance, you would want to probably build something that's going to attack really fast. It also has a decent enhanced damage of 130 to 160%. It adds a really nice amount of cold damage of 50 to 140 straight to your attack. Which does have a duration of 3 seconds. And it also freezes targets with a freezes target +2, which, believe it or not, the 50 to 140 cold damage will add to the duration of the freezes target. We also have a bonus strength of +20 on this sword, which is pretty high, and a negative requirements of 30%. I'm not exactly sure why the negative requirements was put on this, but I guess, you know, whatever. The ethereal version has 49 to 117 damage and 101 to 236 two-handed damage. It has only 4 dexterity requirement and 54 strength. Now, the Frozen Orb is actually kind of interesting, but there are other items that you could get this effect on, like, for instance, a Voice of Reason rune word, which is a way that you could get Frozen Orb procs. I believe they're higher level and higher percentage too. But this particular item, if you were going to use it end game, would need to be upgraded. The physical damage on it is just kind of low. To upgrade it, you're going to need a Pull rune and a Lum rune and a Perfect Emerald. And let's upgrade these right now, and let's see what they go to, and then we'll go test them out and see what they're good for. So here we go. So the non-ethereal version goes from 33 to 78, 67 to 158, 14 dex, 64 strength, level 44, to the Highland Blade, 57 to 161, 174 to 249 damage, two-handed, 73 dex, 120 strength, and level 56. Actually not bad on the stat requirements at all. The damage actually went up quite nicely, and not bad. Not bad for as far as upgrades go, especially considering the level requirement is still only level 56. That could definitely be useful for a level 56 character. The ethereal version goes from 49 to 117, 101 to 236, 4 dex, 54 strength at level 43, to 85 to 241, 260 to 374, 63 dex, 110 strength at level 56. Not bad. Now, unfortunately, for the ethereal version, if you wanted to use that on any character, you would have to put a Zod rune in it. So that is going to limit your usability on this socket. However, for the non-eth version, you could put a Shale rune in there, or something else nice to increase the speed. Let's go play around with the idea of utilizing this in a combat scenario and see how often the Frozen Orb procs, if at all. So yeah, there's 1, 2, 3. Not quite as often as you would like, right? And quite honestly, the damage isn't quite the greatest. I mean, as far as the build goes, I mean, if you were going to specifically build around this sword, you would probably want to get more than just simply cold damage. You know, I don't know. I feel like Voice of Reason probably beats out the King of Cold weapon just simply because it has a higher proc chance and a higher level. And specifically, the proc chance is just a little bit too low, is what the issue is. Like a 5% chance to cast Frozen Orb is not nearly high enough. It's also not really fast enough either. Even utilizing Frenzy, obviously I seem to be missing my... No, I have Ravenfrost on. There must be a Holy Freeze monster right there. There you go. That's the reason. That's the reason for the season. Let's get away from the Holy Freeze monster, shall we? I was like, am I a big dummy who forgot to put on a Ravenfrost? Now, on level, when you find this item, the Frozen Orb actually does a pretty decent amount of damage. In Hell difficulty, with everything having massive resistances and all these other things going on, you know, big giant health pools, the 2,400-ish damage that comes out of the Frozen Orb isn't nearly enough, unfortunately. The Freeze's target also suffers from severe penalties in Hell difficulty for duration. So if you guys are unaware of this, in normal difficulty, the Freeze's target would work really well. In Nightmare difficulty, it's about like half, and in Hell difficulty, it's like 33% of like normal. And this causes a pretty big issue, is that if you're going to build a Freeze's target character, you've got to really stack on the Freeze's target to get it high enough to the point where the monsters will stay frozen for any considerable amount of time, which is it's unfortunate. I see what this sword was trying to go for: the Frozen Orb, the Freeze's target, the cold damage, but it really falls short of the mark because it just doesn't provide enough cold damage. It doesn't provide a high enough level Frozen Orb at a high enough proc chance, and it doesn't give enough Freeze's target. I kind of feel like this is like the intermediary sword in between two different weapons. Like, for instance, it kind of seems similar to a Shadow Fang, and it also seems similar to the Frostwind, whereas the Frostwind is the Hell kind of elite version with the much higher Freeze's target, and the Shadow Fang is the normal difficulty version with no Freeze's target. If they were going to fix this weapon, they would really need to beef up the Frozen Orb on striking a little bit, and a little bit of increased attack speed on this would definitely go a long way. Even if it was just 20%, that would bring this a long way towards actually being a usable item. Now, in its defense, I feel like this item was kind of designed around Nightmare difficulty. So let's take a look real quick and see how it performs in Nightmare difficulty as opposed to Hell difficulty. Let's go to River of Flame again. Let's go ahead and throw this back on. And as you can see, the monsters stay frozen for much longer. It definitely seems to do more damage. The Frozen Orb on striking is definitely seeming to do more when it actually hits the targets. This sword really, honestly, is kind of balanced around Nightmare, and I think that's where it probably should stay. It's not even really, honestly, that great in Nightmare difficulty. That's sad. It's just not fast enough. Like, when it comes to a elemental damage item, when it comes to an item that puts out strictly elemental damage, like proccing effects or elemental damage on the sword, freezes target, things like that, you want a weapon that attacks fast, much faster than what I've got here. Like, I feel like I'm swinging a turd. All right, let's go over to Silo's Pen real quick, and let's see where you could potentially find this item if you wanted to find one. Let's see what Silo's Pen has to say. So the Bing Wang kind of sounds like a expletive in Japanese and Chinese. Oh, there it is. So let's assume about 100% magic find. Let's go to bosses first. And ignoring the quest flags, it looks like Mephisto and Nightmare is your best bet, with Diablo honestly right behind at 1 in 1083. So Mephisto and Diablo and Nightmare are your two best bets there as far as drop chance. Bale and Nightmare is decent too, but he's obviously a little bit harder to farm. And Dariel and Hell's not bad either at 1 in 1195. As far as super uniques go, the Cow King and Hell and Nightmare both have pretty good chances. Cow King usually has pretty good chances. I've always thought the Cow King had really good drops. Eldritch in Nightmare, Stormtree in Nightmare. That's an interesting choice. Shank the Overseer, Doc Farron, Pindleskin in Nightmare. A lot of Nightmare options here. Not really that great, though. I mean, look, 1 in 12,000. And it just gets worse from there. It just goes up and up and up. Yeah, I mean, it looks like to me if you were going to farm this, probably just do Nightmare Mephisto, Nightmare Diablo. Those are really good choices. As well as Hell and Dariel would be a decent choice if you can swing that. Well, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when I can hardly say the name. And as always, keep watching.